My ex-husband showed up at my parents' house. Could you please pack up and leave right away? Excuse me. Ignoring my stunned silence, my ex-husband continued. My wife is pregnant. It's her sister. That's right, my ex-husband left me for my sister 5 years ago. For the sake of the baby, we want to set up a good educational environment. We can make much better use of this house than a lifelong single like you. You're infertile and nobody needs you. You get it? Stop making a fuss and just go. I sighed and shook my head. Impossible. What? You seriously don't? You know who lives in this house now. Immediately after that, a large figure appeared from behind me. The moment my ex-husband saw it, he turned pale and began to tremble. Why? My name is Catherine, an office worker who turns 35 this year. Thankfully, it seems that I am somewhat valued in my company and among my peers. I have managed to make a decent progression in my career. Although I am leading a steady life now, it was not without many twists and turns. Undoubtedly, one of the most significant events in recent years would be my divorce. The cause was his infidelity. 5 years ago, my then-husband, David, ran off with another woman. Surprisingly, the woman he ran off with was my own younger sister. Looking back, my sister has always been the type to covet what I had, so I suppose she's consistent in that way. However, it doesn't change the fact that what they did was beyond any reasonable behavior. At that time, David and I were co-workers who had started our jobs at the same time. David was gentle and very observant. I, who was young at the time, was attracted to these aspects of David. He also took a liking to me, and our relationship developed into a romantic one. After dating for a while, I introduced David to my family. As we were dating with marriage in mind, we both decided that it was proper to do so. At that time, my younger sister just happened to be visiting home. Upon seeing David's face, Samantha, my sister, immediately exclaimed, "What?" This was because Samantha and David had attended the same university and had known each other already. After that, it became more common for Samantha, David, and me to go shopping together. It was a delightful time. Even after David and I got married, the interaction with Samantha continued. However, as we hung out in the group more often, I began to feel increasingly uneasy. David and Samantha would get excited about topics only they knew about, and they started going out together secretly. Did you go out with Samantha yesterday? I would have loved to join you guys. Yeah, next time. All right. I had a strange feeling about this. Then one day, a co-worker from the company where David and I worked invited us for a meal. Delighted, I accepted the invitation, not knowing that I would soon learn a shocking truth. Apparently, David had been seen entering a hotel arm in arm with a woman who was not me. When I asked for the woman's description, I found out that it was Samantha. Although I didn't want to believe it, they even showed me a photo, leaving me with no choice but to accept the truth. I got the photo data from my coworker and decided to confront David about it on the same day. What is the meaning of this? You see. David kept mumbling, his attitude non-committal. So, you've been betraying me all along, huh? You two were laughing behind my back, right? Did you enjoy it? No matter what I asked, David said nothing. He just kept his head down in silence. David disappeared the next day. When I woke up in the morning, David was nowhere to be found. I couldn't believe it and called Samantha, but she didn't answer. It was 3 days later that I found out Samantha and David were together. A filled-out divorce paper was sent to the house where I lived with David, and about the same time, I received an email from Samantha. The email from Samantha simply read, "I will be happy with David." Naturally, I couldn't accept it. But even if I wanted to protest, I didn't know where they had gone, and I couldn't get in touch with them. Furthermore, it seemed that David had sent his resignation letter to our workplace by mail, so I also lost that connection. Having no other choice, I decided to agree to the divorce. For a while after that, I couldn't recover. I couldn't cope with the fact that my own sister and my husband had eloped, but I couldn't stay depressed forever. I decided to channel my frustration and resentment into my work. When I was engrossed in my work, I could forget about David and Samantha. That strategy worked, and my contribution to the company was recognized, and I was given a position. I was blessed with new relationships, and 5 years after Samantha and David eloped, I can say that I am leading a successful life. One day, something happened. That day was a day off from work, so I woke up later than usual. Thinking I needed to make breakfast, I got up from bed with my smartphone, which I had placed by my pillow, rang. It was a phone call. The screen showed it was an unknown number. I usually wouldn't answer, but maybe because I had just woken up, I impulsively answered. "Hello, who is this?" "Ah, Catherine, long time no see." "It's me, David. How have you been? I'm glad you're still using this phone number." To my surprise, the one who called was my ex-husband, David. I was so surprised that I almost slipped off the bed. "What, David? Why?" "Why, that's cold. We're ex-spouses. We should keep in touch." David said that, laughing as if nothing was wrong. His attitude, as if nothing happened, reminded me of the anger I thought I had forgotten. "What do you mean, ex-spouses don't mess around? You have a lot of nerve to contact me so brazenly. What do you want?" Well, calm down. You haven't changed at all." His nonchalant tone irritated me even more. David, perhaps noticing this, finally got to the point. "So, yeah, you're living in your parents' house now, right? Could you pack up and leave as soon as possible? Your sister and I have decided to live there." I had no idea what he was talking about. What kind of thinking would lead to that? "Actually, we got married and recently had a child. We want to provide a good educational environment for the child. Of course, you won't refuse, right? I mean, I'm actually being considerate here. If you keep staying in your parents' house, you won't be able to remarry." I started to get a headache. I wished he wouldn't say such foolish things. Indeed, as David says, I have returned to my parents' house. I don't know where he got that information, but it's correct. "No, of course, I refuse. Why do I have to vacate my parents' house for the likes of you?" When I said that, David seemed offended and replied in a bit of a harsh tone. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, there's no way you, a 35-year-old with infertility, could be married in the first place. When I was married to David, I never got pregnant. He must be referring to that when he mentioned infertility, but it's a nasty way to put it. Is that all you want to say? I absolutely won't give up this house." Then I hung up the phone unilaterally. I didn't want to talk to David any more than that, but he's too self-centered. After eloping due to an affair, now he wants to take the house too. I hope he gives up with this, but who knows what will happen. A few days passed after that. That day, I was busy from morning, and finally managed to take a lunch break. Just past 2 p.m., I finished lunch at my favorite diner near the office, and when I entered the building entrance to return to the office, I spotted a familiar figure. "You've got to be kidding me. Why are you here?" David was there. He gained so much weight compared to 5 years ago, but without a doubt, the figure standing there was David. I tried to hide instantly, but before I could, he found me. "Ah, there you are. I've been waiting forever about the thing we were talking about the other day. When can you move out?" "I'd like you to leave by next month, if possible, like I said." I refused that request, and it's unacceptable that you came all the way to my workplace. Just leave. David continued to talk, looking irritated, though his expression was a smile. There you go again. No matter how you think about it, it's obvious that it would be better for our family and the baby on the way to live with your parents than for you, a single woman. Isn't that right? This is pointless. I felt a sort of fear from David, who kept insisting no matter how many times I refused. You're so annoyingly persistent. No matter how much you ask, it's impossible. You chose to have an affair, you chose to elope, so you can live somewhere else on your own from now on. When I said that, David furrowed his brow in irritation and raised his voice. Listen, the only reason I had an affair, in the first place, was because you were infertile. If you could have had children, I wouldn't have had an affair. It's all your fault, so take responsibility and at least provide a place to live. I was so stunned that I was speechless. To say that my infertility was the reason he had an affair was a cross-shifting of blame. Are you seriously saying that I have work? So I'm leaving now. David seemed like he still had something to say, but it seemed he finally noticed the surrounding gazes, and he said, "Just remember this, before leaving the entrance." I thought that David had finally given up, but I was naive to think so. A week had passed after David came to my workplace. When I finished work and was relaxing at home watching TV, the doorbell suddenly rang. I didn't have any visitors scheduled. Regardless, I decided to look into the intercom monitor. David and my sister were standing there. I wanted them to stop already. I quickly headed to the entrance and forcefully opened the door. "Ah, Catherine, have you packed?" I didn't get any contact, so I came directly. "Wow, it's been so long, sis. You heard from David, right? I'm pregnant. I'll let you spoil the baby once it's born." I conspicuously say that they're audacity. What's wrong? Are you tired? Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Listen, having a baby is great, but we don't have money, so we'll leave here, okay? My sister looked up at me, pleading with me as she said this, and then David spoke. "That's right. I realized recently this house isn't yours, right? Are your parents home? I'd like to talk to them. It's their first grandchild, so they're definitely going to accept us." I couldn't help but laugh at his words. I couldn't believe they didn't know. Why are you laughing? You're so rude. Hurry up and bring out Mom and Dad, huh? Don't you really know they are not here anymore? They are not. Neither of my parents lives here anymore. After I divorced David and returned to my parents' house, they gifted this house to me while they were still alive. And now my parents are living a retired life in the countryside on my mother's side. So the owner of this house is me. Upon hearing this, both Samantha and David opened their eyes wide. Got it. This house is my house, so I have all the decision-making rights, even though I clearly said that David still persisted. If that's the case, Catherine can live here, and we'll live together, right? Let's get along just like before, the three of us. Yes, that's a good idea. Ah, that's a good idea. It must be lonely for you to live in such a large house all by yourself, right? If we live together, everyone will be happy. Just as I was about to refute the outrageous proposal of these two, a voice came. What's happening? Oh, it's you. I'm sorry for the noise. This is my ex-husband and my sister whom I told you about the other day. The one who addressed me was my current husband, and in his arms was our daughter. My husband muttered, "I see," and greeted David and Samantha, who were in the midst of chaos. "Good evening. I'm Catherine's husband, and this is our daughter. Isn't she adorable?" Both David and Samantha were opening and closing their mouths in surprise. They must have been shocked. The truth is I'm remarried. About a year after my divorce from David, I met my current husband through a friend. Things went smoothly with him, and we got married less than 6 months after we started dating. Soon after, I became pregnant with my daughter, and now I'm working and handling my duties as a housewife thanks to my husband's help with housework and childcare. I've been able to continue working without neglecting my job and have been promoted steadily. I think you understand now, but there's no room for you here. My husband, daughter, and I are a family of 3 living happily together. What, Catherine, weren't you infertile? This can't be, no way. David sat down on the spot, holding his head in his hands. What's this? It's not fair that my older sister gets to marry such a handsome man. It's so unfair. As he said this, Samantha began to stomp her feet in frustration. My husband looked down at her with a cold gaze and said, "Given these circumstances, please leave. If you attempt to approach her family again, we will call the police. Understood?" Perhaps scared by my husband's forcefulness and the mention of police, David and Samantha ran away with their faces turned pale. From that day on, neither David nor Samantha appeared before me again. It seemed that the two, desperate for money, tried to reach out to David's parents, but they had been disowned due to the scandal 5 years prior, so they were quickly turned away. It was to be expected. This is a story I heard from a mutual friend from David and me, but apparently David is once again involved in an affair and is now in the midst of a divorce crisis. And the reason was quite surprising. In reality, Samantha was not pregnant. It seems she had lied in order to find a way back home. And David, it appears, did not know that Samantha was not actually pregnant, so he too had been deceived. Naturally, such a lie was soon discovered. David had run away with Samantha because he wanted a child, but if Samantha was not pregnant, she became unnecessary to him. David keeps having affairs because he wants a child. However, it's unlikely that David would ever have a child. He's probably infertile. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say for sure, but considering the circumstances, it seems highly likely. I wonder when David will realize, or maybe he's finally realized. In any case, it's no longer my concern. One day, I received a letter from David. I was perplexed but decided to check the contents with my husband just in case. The letter was filled with things like, "I was diagnosed as infertile when I went to the hospital for an examination, and I regret running away 5 years ago." It also stated that he wanted to start over with me. Of course, I ignored the letter. My husband, in a fit of anger, tore the letter to shreds. Whether he gave up on reconciliation because he didn't get a response, or he didn't expect the response from the start, no more letters came from David. He was a selfish and pathetic man to the very end. I should forget about a man like that and live my own life. Now I'm living with a kind and considerate husband and my precious daughter who's growing cuter day by day. I'll do anything to protect this happiness I finally grasped. I swore that to myself.